Last week on Legally Kidnapped.
Good evening. Our top story this week. In Massachusetts, child advocacy group Children's Rights releases a wave of scathing reports calling the state's child welfare system profoundly broken. These reports claim that 1 in 5 kids who are in foster care for at least 2 years has suffered abuse or neglect while in care, and that thousands of young lives are endangered thanks to a lack of oversight within the Massachusetts child protective industry. In Indiana, police and judges are calling the state's child abuse hotline frustrating and inefficient, while DCS calls it a model for other states and one of the most up-to-date and effective in the nation. Then they change their story and acknowledge problems with the hotline and caseworker retention. And the director of Indiana's Department of Child Services is denying claims that a subordinate wrote her master's degree papers for her so that she could graduate. In Maine this week, Governor Paul LePage unfairly gives CPS agents who steal children a raise to address low morale and a high turnover rate at the expense of Medicaid recipients who are being cut from the program, and without giving raises to any other state workers who have been subjected to a pay freeze since 2009. A new report from Child Care Aware of America finds that child care costs in most states for 2 kids exceeds the median rent, making it the largest household expense in the country. The state of Florida turns down a $4.9 million federal grant for family preservation programs designed to help parents keep their kids from being snatched. And Florida also decides to take away the child abuse investigation function from the Citrus County Sheriff's Department and give it to social workers. In Texas, the school considers putting cameras in the classrooms after a special needs kid was abused by a teacher's aide. In Nebraska, the state's attempts at reforming their child protective industry by privatizing child welfare agencies turns out to be a complete and utter failure. 318 U.S. Department of Homeland Security employees were arrested last year for everything from child porn to drug smuggling, but the good news is that the number of arrests is down from 2010 when there were 519. In New Jersey, the child protective industry is taking heat after a kid who they returned to his mother and visited just hours before has his head cut off. And divorced women in the United States are complaining about having to share custody of their kids with their exes, calling it a pain. In Mexico, a real father who was deported gets custody of a 3-year-old daughter who he never met after the Idaho Supreme Court rules that the family court erred when severing his parental rights due to deportation proceedings. In New Zealand, the government commissions an audit of changes in the family court system after lawyers start complaining. And in Romania, they're having a hard time adopting out their orphans and calling such adoptions of orphans a rarity. In Canada, a researcher calls the Saskatchewan foster care system unethical because although it is widely assumed that foster kids are safe, they are in fact abused and neglected while in provincial care. Aboriginal kids who are kept in the Saskatchewan foster care system have bounced from home to home up to 30 times. And a couple of foster parents are upset about potentially losing their jobs and are fighting to be able to keep taking care of a disabled kid that they've been caring for 15 years after he ages out when he would usually be required to live in a group home. In Australia this week, a 20-month-old foster child is critically injured, sparking a probe into Western Australia's child protective industry, as questions are raised over staffing shortages, which ties up CPS agents. Then the baby dies from her injuries this past Thursday, which sparks more inquiries after it is revealed that CPS agents visited the kid just hours before she was attacked. In New South Wales, CPS agents walk off the job complaining about budget cuts and staff shortages. In Queensland, where another inquiry is going on regarding their foster care system, it is revealed that foster children as young as 12 months old are being drugged through their eyeballs on psychiatric medications, and it is revealed that the number one contributing factor to the overwhelmed child welfare system in Australia is false accusations of abuse and neglect, usually made by warring spouses in divorce proceedings. In England, councils consider replacing social workers with non-qualified staff to handle child abuse assessments in an effort to save money, and a former Scout leader, foster parent, and social worker is spared jail after his child porn collection was found on his personal computer. In entertainment news this week, a mother who dressed up her daughter with fake boobs and a padded butt to look like Dolly Parton for the show Toddlers and Tiaras finds herself in a heated custody battle after the father accuses her of sexually exploiting their child. A California hospital social worker is claiming that she was fired for ratting out Mariah Carey to the child protective industry after she was caught drinking a beer and taking medications at a nurse's advice while breastfeeding last year. Usher wins sole custody of his 2 kids from Tamika Foster. And TV evangelist Pat Robertson warns parents not to adopt sexually abused children, saying that you don't know what's happened to these kids and you shouldn't have to take on other people's problems. In Oklahoma, a former cop and foster parent pleads guilty to molesting 3 of his adopted adopted sons attempting to prevent one of the witnesses from testifying and possession of child pornography. In Oregon, a foster parent who is serving 5 years for molesting 4 girls in his care faces more charges as more victims come forward. In South Carolina, a foster parent is arrested for molesting a kid in his care. And in New York, a family court judge is kicked off the bench after admitting he sexually abused his 5-year-old niece back in 1972. In Ohio this week, investigators are looking into a foster home where a 2-year-old was allegedly beaten. In California, a foster mother is ordered to trial for the murder of a 1-month-old foster child who she shook to death, even though she claims that she was only trying to burp the kid. And in New Jersey, a man is charged with hitting a 15-year-old foster child in the head with a frying pan. In New York, a group of teenagers is accused of ganging up on another kid and breaking his arm in a Staten Island foster home beating incident. A foster mother from Tulsa, Oklahoma is charged with excessively spanking a 6-year-old in her care. And finally, tonight in Michigan, police put out an Amber Alert searching for a young girl who was rescued from the state's foster care system by her mother. For these stories and all the latest dirt on the child protective industry, visit www.legallykidnapped.com. And until next week, this is Baby LK, over and out.